Folks, it was one sentence that changed things for me. So let me give you this brief, and this I'm not trying to bore you, but every once in a while I like to clue you in on something of where am I coming from. So I told you earlier, you know, I grew up in the home where we watched the President of the United States on TV. As I now watch all of these shows and break them down, you say, where do you get this from? Okay. Where do you get what they're really saying? Okay, where do you get that? What they're really saying? How did you get to the point, and I say I understand that, you understand the direction they're in. I mean, have you always done this? Well, let me just say so you have a little background. Obviously, we grew up in a Republican home. We grew up in a Republican home where we watched the President of the United States. Now, think of being very young, and every time the President of the United States came on TV, was on TV, that as soon as it was over, you're 8 years old and your dad breaks down what they really said. I'll never forget it till the day I die. Every time the president made any kind of speech, love State of the Union. Love State of the Union. I loved it because, oh, you hear that right there? You hear that, kids? What he's really saying is he's going to increase taxes. You hear that right there, kids? You hear that? What he's really saying is he's going to increase spending on entitlements. All right, so, and Jimmy Carter was the president, I'll never forget, that my dad used to break down. It was like game film. I swear to God, it was like game film when we were kids. You think I'm wrong? All right, it's over. Now, let's break down the game film. So I've known this my whole life. I've studied it my whole life. I was taught what they really said, okay? And then when I was a kid, I loved the president would use a word, regardless of what president, whether it was Nixon, I don't want to go too far, okay? President would use a word I didn't understand. So then we went to the old-fashioned dictionary and looked it up and said, oh, you tried to slide that one by me, all right? So anyhow, I have known this my whole life. Now, my dad taught us that the media, now this goes back in the 70s, could have been in the 60s too. I'm not going to touch that, all right? But my dad taught us that this media was to the left. I mean, this is in the 70s, that they did not, how they clip things, how they put things together to move a story. We were taught that as kids, all right? And we continued to grow up watching the media move stories and lie to us. And I knew all along that every time they came on ABC, NBC, CBS, and I think CNN, okay, I think CNN is just, but there was no Fox and there was no MSNBC and there was no other 24-hour news network. But every time they came on, I knew they were changing the narrative to meet what they wanted for liberals. Then there's always the part that Republicans think that the media likes them. Always that part. This goes all the way back with George H. Bush. All the way back, George H. Bush thought when he did Read My Lips, No New Taxes, he thought when he came out, George H. Bush, and cut a deal with Democrats to raise taxes to pay down and pay off the SNL, balloon bust, right? SNL balloon bust, right? That big money, we never talk about that. He thought, you know what? They will be okay. The Democrats said, we'll get the media behind you. We'll let people know, George H. We'll let them know that you had to do it. We'll go to bat for you with the media. So every time in a Republican's history that they think for 1 second, the media thinks for 1 second that Charlie Dent thinks they like him, that, Marco Rubio thinks they like him. John Kasich never misses an opportunity. They always go to a Republican governor and they find John Kasich. You let John Kasich get the nominee for the Republican Party to be president, And you will not see that honeymoon with John Kasich as a Republican any longer with the media. So we always get this impression that the media likes us Republicans for a fraction of a second. So long story short, I'm driving out to Lorain, Ohio. We can't go into details. I'm on the Ohio Turnpike, right? I'm going out to Lorain, Ohio on the Ohio Turnpike. Now, this is back in the day when you had a cell phone and your cell phone plan, was like $2.80 a minute, right? Or something like that. That's back in the day, in the old school, right? You had a bag phone, all the above. So I'm driving out to Lorain, Ohio on the Ohio Turnpike. And every single day at this time, I've always tried, it's 11 o'clock, to dial Rush Limbaugh. Always is. I'm a kid, right? I'm still a kid. So every day at this time, I'm trying to dial Rush Limbaugh at 11 o'clock, right? So this particular day, I get up and I drink the coffee, not the Kool-Aid, and I watch all the morning shows. And it happened to be day 100 of Bill Clinton's presidency. I mean, the first term, day 100. And I watched ABC gushing over the guy, gushing over him. What a magnificent 100 days. Why, him and Hillary and Chelsea, they did a tour through the White House. What was the biggest changes in Chelsea's life? And how was it to be a mom and try to be a part legislator and mom and bake cookies? Oh, I swear, that's how this was, right? So it was day 100, and every channel I flipped to was gushing over this guy, and I could not believe it. I was freaking out because I followed everything. I followed Don't Ask, Don't Tell. I followed the disaster of the first 100 days that they painted this broad stroke of beauty over Bill Clinton's 100 days. So this morning, I'm driving out at 11, and I'm dialing 1-800-282-2882 or whatever it is. I forget. I'll never forget. And I'm dialing. I said, if that Bo Snerdley would ever answer the phone, a busy signal, busy signal. So it finally rang. I'm like, whoa. So I looked down at the cell phone that I'm paying $2.85 a minute for. It's the right number, and it's ringing. And I guess Snerdley answers and says, Rush Limbaugh show, what's your topic? I said, I want to talk about the first 100 days of Bill Clinton and the media, just all up in arms and excited about it and gushing over it. Okay, hold. So now, I was happy to pay the $89.99 for this one phone call back then because I'm on hold for 40 minutes, right, waiting for Rush. So the show comes on, and it wasn't open line Friday. It's middle of the week, so Rush might not take his first caller to like 12:40. So I've already got like $150 invested in this phone call, right? And it's well worth it, right? So finally, the magic moment. I hear Rush Limbaugh say, our first caller next up, Brian, somewhere in Ohio. Damn, that's me. So now wait for it, because there's only one sentence that changed things for me, something I already knew. So I said, hey, Rush, I got the chance to say mega dittos. I paid $150 to get to say mega dittos, right? So I said, mega dittos, Rush, long-time listener, blah, blah, blah. I've been listening. ABC back as a kid. I'm still a kid, right? So, and I'm driving out the Ohio Turnpike, and I got up this morning, and I watched all the morning shows, and I am so outraged on how they are celebrating and how much they're in love and what a great job the media is telling me that Bill Clinton is doing. And he said, Brian, what did you expect? What did you expect? Brian, what did you expect? Then he went on to talk about why do we keep falling for the... I look like, oh, really? You're going to use me as the example? Why do we keep falling for the media? Why do we keep thinking that one day they're going to come out and they're going to do this and that? And I'm going to tell you, it is on. I have a mile mile marker in my life that says day 100 of Bill Clinton's first term, Rush Limbaugh said to me, Brian, what did you expect? I've never, let's see how this is going to get framed up out there in the world. I have never been the same. Never again. Okay? Because everything I knew in that one sentence flipped over. And what do you expect, people? It's the only way I could do it. What did Bear Bryant used to say? You never see a good ideal worth a good play that wasn't worth stealing or something. All right. I don't know what the quote was, but anyhow, I'm going to use that. Folks, what did you expect? What do you expect from Paul Ryan? What do you expect from Mitch McConnell? What do you expect from MSNBC? What do you expect today? And that is the biggest question I want to take away. What do you expect from these people that you keep voting into office? What do you expect this morning, viewer, when you keep putting the same person in like a Charlie Dent for their 7th term, 14 years? What do you expect when you get up and turn on CNN and you get up and turn on MSNBC and you turn on Good Morning America and you turn on George Stephanopoulos on Sunday and you turn on Chuck Todd? What do you expect? Well, let me tell you something. Swamp, you may not, the media, don't forget who's telling you what's happening in the White House. Don't forget who's leading the narrative of the dysfunction in the White House. Don't forget. Don't forget who's telling you the real reason Steve Bannon left the White House. Don't forget. Right? It is the people that you can't expect the truth from. You can't expect MSNBC to come to you and tell you the total truth. You can't expect, all right, the New York Times, the Washington Post. You can't expect these people to come to you and level with you, and Republicans, you can't expect them to. Can't expect these politicians. Because let me tell you something. You remember I did a segment called Steve Bannon's Exit Interview. Remember? You remember the interview that he did right a couple weeks before he left that called some things out that the reporter did? Was it a New Yorker? I don't forget what article it was, but called some people out. And I said, hey, could that be his exit interview? Can you see his exit strategy? Now, rumor is there was a strategy for Bannon to leave. And that strategy for Bannon to leave was set up, but then Charlottesville took place and Bannon became the white supremacist that we all know and love, that the media told us that we all know and love him if you voted for Trump, and he is the reason that Charlottesville happened. So we understand through sources that Bannon had an exit strategy. But you remember on this show, I told you that interview was his exit interview. And you remember on this show, I told you Bannon and some people have left the White House in time for the 2018 election. I told you that here in this show. Watch what happens, okay? And I'm also telling you today that Donald Trump has put everybody in such a box that you better get ready. I'm going to close with telling you, you better get ready for legislation to be passed, because Donald Trump has every corner covered and he's the man in charge. Meet the new boss. The old boss, meet the new boss. His name's Donald J. Trump. And Mitch McConnell, for you that says he doesn't know how to get things done, and for other people to say that he doesn't know how to work through Washington, guess what? He owns the place. I'm your host, BKP. We will be at Sycamore Crossing tomorrow morning. We hope the weather will hold out for that. Sycamore Crossing Friday morning, tomorrow morning in Blue Ridge. But don't forget to go to FetchYourNews.com and follow us on all of our feeds. Good Morning from the Office. Follow us on the 706-889-9700. You can text us if you have any information you want to get out about the upcoming storm Irma that's coming through. Follow us on Twitter and our Facebook page. Take us out of here. We'll be back tomorrow morning.